Over the years, as I've talked to many people who embrace the calling to generosity and giving, I've had some great conversations around the topic of giving to endowments versus giving to present day causes, making a gift right now. And it's really interesting to me to find out the philosophies and the way that people think about this differently. So, for example, there's one person that I know who loves giving to endowments. This person worked in universities for a number of years before he went on to do other things. And he had seen firsthand the impact that an endowment can make and how it can stabilize and secure a valuable position in the university and help support a certain faculty member's work and research for generations, even after one person passes away. And for some people, they love the idea of an endowment because you're making a gift and then a percentage of that is released annually to benefit whatever you have restricted that endowment for. It could be an endowment for an endowed position or endowed program or an endowment to help with the facilities upkeep of a given building. It could be an endowment to help underwrite a certain program or certain activity of some sort. There are lots of different options. And I know some people do endowments that simply release to the general fund of an organization that they care about. But for those that I've talked to who love endowments, that's what they like about it. They like the idea that they can make a gift now and maybe a planned gift that would come to fruition once they pass away. And they like the idea that gift will exist essentially forever and that it will just release, it will be invested, and it will release a certain amount for a very long time. And that is a neat thing because they like the concept of the legacy impact. It's not just a single time period, single generation, but it's something that year after decade, and maybe even after century, it's going to keep giving. And that's a really neat concept. And of course, when you contribute to an endowment, other people can add to it later. So if they're inspired by what you've given to, they can build upon that. And maybe you start an endowment that's a smaller amount. Maybe it's something like $50,000. It's a scholarship for students with a particular need or going in a certain area, that another person might love that and they might double your gift and turn it into $100,000. And maybe over time, other family members like to contribute to it, and it could be a generational contribution to that family endowment. And so some love that idea. They love the idea of growth. But then I've talked to other people who are not big fans of the endowment for several reasons. One, I've talked to a number of individuals who embrace the vocation of giving and generosity, and they've been blessed to be high net worth individuals. And they're really good at investing. And they know how to get a great return on their investment, taking that money and investing it in traditional stocks, other kinds of business investments and the like. And some of them are really good at getting a very high percentage return annually. And so for some of those individuals, they look at how many endowments at nonprofits operate and they realize, well, I can do much better than that. I can get 5% more, 10%, 20% more than what they can. And then I can take that profit and I can use it to give back to the organization while I'm around. And I get that. And it makes a lot of sense for some people because of how things operate. It doesn't obviously have as big of a tax benefit sometimes. So that's something that people deliberate on. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I am no legal or tax expert here, so don't trust my advice on that. But it's a factor that I've heard from people that they talk about, they consider. But then there's also another perspective that really intrigues me about endowment or not also. And I've come across this in many places. I've come across it from both the giver side and the recipient side. So I have known institutions that say, we don't believe in endowments. We don't believe in receiving endowment gifts. And they've had donors come to them and want to set up an endowment. And those organizations would say, no, we don't like it. We want to prove our merit and our value by providing something that's so valuable that people are willing to pay for it. And this is true for like a private school in some cases. I have heard of some private institutions that say, we don't believe in endowments if we can't raise funds from this present generation and we don't have people today who care about this institution enough to keep it going, making gifts, attending, participating, working there, all of those things, then we don't deserve to exist. And we don't want an endowment to mess that up or to make us soft, as I've heard some of them say. And on the donor side, I've heard it said in a little bit different way, but similarly, those with the vocation of giving. I've heard some say, well, I consider it my calling and job to give generously while I'm here. And I leave it to the next generation to decide what to do next. My job is to use the time that I've been given on this planet and to give generously, but then it's someone else's job once I'm gone and I pass away. And maybe some of those individuals will pass on some of their wealth to family members, and they will leave it to their family members to decide if or how they want to give charitably, maybe to the same organizations, maybe to different ones, but they just want to pass it on, and that's how they see it. I'm not convinced that there is one morally right or wrong way to approach this. It's really just a different way of thinking about being the best possible steward we can be with those gifts entrusted to us, with those resources entrusted to us. But I think it's a good thing for us to think about, to consider, what is my position on this? Now, if you want to know my position in particular, I see value on all of the perspectives, but I do see the incredible impact of endowments. I'm a huge advocate and fan for endowments, and it's something that I'm thinking about how I can best contribute to endowments that advance the causes that I care about and to help those missions last much longer than I will. But hopefully you know that this channel is not about telling you what to do. It's just exploring the calling and the vocation of generosity and considering the options and the possibilities and leaving it up to each of us individually to determine how we can best be stewards of that which has been entrusted to us.